What is up, everybody? Hold on, let me adjust that mic again. What is up, everybody? I'm glad to be back here with you today on this lovely Sunday evening. I hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are having a had a fantastic weekend. I know I'm doing good, and it's good to see everybody out there in the chat and coming on in. It is going to be great. We're looking forward to having a couple folks on today. I know for sure. I heard confirmations from, I think, a couple folks, and we've already got two in the chat here. First and foremost, let me welcome to the chat someone I know who just wrapped up a review, I think, of the opening statements. Andrew Bronca, Law of Self-Defense. How you doing? Hey, and then it looks like we got one other who I didn't know whether he can make it or not, but I am very glad he did, which is James from Court. James, is your audio working?
Hey there, everyone.
Good. Are you driving right now?
I am.
Okay, do not end up by the side of the road trying to perform insurance fraud, because that would be bad. But thanks for joining, James. I know you've been in the courtroom, and so you have a perspective about the jurors, and that I want to hear about. Absolutely want to hear about in terms of their reaction to some of that testimony on later Thursday and Friday. And then last but not least, the man who I'm glad can make it today, because he sent me, Steve, this gentleman is the only guy who I mentioned something to him in passing, and he sends me two lengthy academic articles within like 10 minutes, and that is Stephen Gosney.
That's right. Hey, how are you? Hey, Andrew, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to be talking about you and reviewing you with this with you guys. And I'm interested to get your take, because it's funny. I got so much pushback for some of my views last week, so we'll see what you guys think. Think here. But let's start it off. Andrew, I know that and we're talking about Murdaugh trial. We can talk about it in general, but I really want to talk about last week's testimony. And frankly, the most of the beef came from the second half of last week. Andrew, I think you just watched the opening statements on your channel, right? I think I saw.
I did, yeah, just in the last couple hours.
So how do you think so far, what we've seen through week 2, how do you think that lines up with the testimony that you've seen, the opening statements versus the testimony?
So in hindsight, we all know the story of the 3 pigs, right? One pig built his house out of straw, the other one out of sticks, the other one out of bricks.
Yeah.
I think the state has, in a technical sense, mostly delivered on what they promised in their opening, except it's all straw. So they didn't actually promise much. When you look at the opening closely, it's all the evidence will show this and that and the other thing. But when you add those pieces up, you still don't end up with a sum that equals guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Right. And they still haven't done that. And a lot of their testimony has been either favorable to the defense or obfuscating the truth of the thing, like that firearms guy they had on who answered every yes/no question with a 50-word answer. You couldn't get anything of value out of him. There's a lot of innuendo in the state's case, a lot of inferences, a lot of theoretically possible, it could have happened this way. And those are all perfectly legitimate reasons for targeting someone as a suspect and investigating them. But it's not what you need for a conviction and trial, or at least it's not what a trial ought to require for a conviction. So I just don't see much there. And in contrast, I thought, and by the way, this afternoon was the first time, afternoon for my time, the first time I've actually listened to the defense opening. I just haven't had time. And I thought it was great. I thought it was really good. I thought it cast doubt where it needed to cast doubt. It created reasonable questions about the state's case. It pointed out where the state's case were weak, where there were alternative explanations for things. It affirmed with the jury, and I love it when defense attorneys do this or anything similar to this, that this guy in front of you right now, as we're giving this opening statement, he's innocent. He's innocent. You have to view him as a person who's innocent of these crimes. And he's not guilty of these crimes until he's been proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But the trial hasn't started yet. As he sits before you right now, this is a man innocent of every charge against him. I love it when they do that. I love it when defense counsel, they put up the graph with, the various thresholds of proof and how high beyond a reasonable doubt is, because jurors don't know any of this, and you have to make it concrete for them. And if you make it, a lot of defense attorneys wait until closing to do these things, and it's too late. by closing, the jurors already made up their minds. So you have to frame what the threshold really is, one way or another. He's presumed innocent. This is how high beyond a reasonable doubt is in the opening, so that every piece of evidence they hear is filtered through them.
Well,
another thing I liked about the defense was they were saying, listen to all this testimony with a critical eye. Critical thinking means looking not just at the purported explanation, but for alternative explanations. Is there another reason, another hypothesis, another narrative by which these facts could be true and it would still be consistent with innocence? Because if that exists, you have not proven guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Obviously, I'll just keep talking until you stop me. So
no. That 100% lines up. By the way, I want to be very clear. When you said firearm expert, I do assume that you were talking about the tool. I mean,
the tool mark guy.
This guy right here.
Right.
I have this queued up. Yeah, this guy. And I know Steve's going to go in on that later, but because there's multiple firearms experts, right? Because we have that guy, and then we have also.
Well, I have no reason to believe that guy's a firearms expert at all, so I shouldn't use the phrase at all.
Earlier, we had this guy as well, right? Who is identifying the ammunition, right? So,
well, does it really? How much expertise does it have to read the thing and say it's 300 blackout? I mean, and the thing is this is what you get with this expertise: is you get somebody who is a technician, who is trained to. He's given a book and it says, okay, the book says that if I could line up 13 striations, then that means that it's a match. That's what he's trained to do.
It's not even that rigorous.
Yes, and I've read the book, and this is what I've been told to say, and it fits what I've been told to say, and that's the extent of it. And I went through a whole lot of training to do that, and you should be impressed, and boy, I'm an expert. That's what he's saying. Now, the defense is going to bring in Tobin. And Tobin is the expert. And I sent you the article. I don't know if you had a chance to read it.
I have a chance to look at it. I didn't read it all, but I did skim it. And like I said, you sent me 2 professional articles like in a snap. And I'm like, this is why I want to talk to Steve on this, because I had a lot of people when I said this is not good science, right? This is not something that's out there that they make it sounding very decisive. The expert was pushing back against the alternative viewpoint that what he was doing is could not tell the exact gun, right? Mm-hmm. They were pushing him back against that, and a lot of people fell for it. A lot of people with that specific witness, witness, they said we find him credible. We find him. We find him professional. Yeah. That's what it was.
Because he's presenting a facade of science, and most people aren't trained in actual science, so they don't know they can't distinguish between real science and faux science. And what he's presenting is faux science. It's not science. There's no null hypothesis. That this wasn't tested under rigorous conditions. There's no evaluation of false positives and false negatives. I mean, there's no science here. It's almost like elementary school pattern recognition. Those games where you flip over cards and you have to remember where the other card was so you can match them up. I mean, it's very primitive what he's doing. There's no rigorous. He can't exclude every other 300 blackout on the planet. He hasn't looked at them. He doesn't know how likely it is that an unknown rifle might match sufficiently similarly that he would call it a match if he was given that round here. And he was compelled on cross to talk about how subjective this is. It's an art. It's an art. I'm sorry, but you ought not put someone in a jail cell for the rest of their life because you have a feeling about your art.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why he mentioned, is it part art and science?
And one of the big issues, though, is that we need to remember, as lawyers and as challengers of the science, is that who bears the burden of proof of proving this science, that this is science? It is the people who are proposing it, who are saying that we can do this using science. Okay, that is what these experts are saying. That is what this expert is saying. He's saying we can match this shell casing, and we can say without a reasonable doubt that this was fired from the same firearm. All right. Well, the burden of showing that is on the people that are saying they can do that, not on the people that are challenging it. That's the first thing. And Tobin is that article lays it out step by step, and the National Science Foundation, as well as the President's Council on Forensic Sciences, both
under Barrio. I saw that one. That was under Barrio too.
Under Obama and the National. I mean, this is the real science. they are saying there's big problems with this and saying that this is definitive. Major, not what Andrew just said, non-falsifiable. There is no database of shell extractors.
And just to throw this out there, because I'm just a small town lawyer in Colorado, right? What do I know about science? And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just saying it to provide some context. When I was in a different career, I had a very extensive science education. I did my graduate work in molecular biology, virology, immunology, epidemiology at Harvard. They taught me how to do science. So I know what actual science looks like.
Yeah, I didn't know that about you, Andrew. That's something new. I thought you were just, pure, blue collar to lawyer, story here versus like having that.
It's been a long, strange trip.
So you've seen everything. And let me get some of these super. So thank you, Miss Ryan. Appreciate you so much for the $49.99 super sticker. Appreciate that. Andrew asks,
was that $49.99?
$49.99. Appreciate that.
Thank
Seriously,
you, Mr.
very
Ryan.
appreciate your support. This helps us do this streaming, helps us keep this going. It was rough last week to keep going. So
why'd you hold back the penny?
If I had you, if I had one more guest, maybe I get that penny. Dragon's Treasure says these trial live streams have really changed my view of the law. Seeing how things work from front to back has proven to be crucial. This one and the popcorn shooting trial especially. Yes, actually, my ex worked on the popcorn shooting trial in Florida. That one was hilarious. But I think seeing the whole process, as well as seeing like when they choose to pursue certain charges versus other charges, it's very interesting that in the Murdaugh case, they specifically went for the theory of the case that this guy was behind the trigger and intentionally killed his wife and son. It's a very strong charge, and to me, Steve, just with the gun, yeah.
That's two of the four charges. It's just the gun stuff.
Right. And to me, Steve, like when I'm thinking about these charges, I'm thinking, is it just because they don't have better evidence on anything else? Do you think it's lazy prosecution that winds up in these situations where they're not looking for any other suspects? I don't believe they ever had any other suspect other than Alex or any other theory of this case.
And I have zero insight, like Andrew, zero insight into
of course,
the politics of South Carolina or what the dynamics of the politics. I really don't have any insight, but I have an intuition and I have experience in criminal trial law, and this one just kind of smells to me, intuits to me that there is a political motive behind the prosecution. That the top prosecutor, who it only takes one. That's the top elected official who says, I don't like this guy and I want you to charge him. That it drove everything. If that guy, I don't know who that guy is.
We don't know, right? We don't know, but it's like we're looking at like one of those 5-gallon Home Depot buckets and the lid's on kind of loose and it smells like shit, but we're not sure there's shit in the bucket, but we're pretty confident if we flip the lid, we're going to find shit inside that bucket. That's how this case goes.
Yeah, and if you just that, all it takes is one person that has that, and there's clearly a lot of hostility, right? So, all right, so let's take that. If we draw it forward, then it's like, all right, they speedy trial it, they don't have the evidence, and these guys are like, okay, I don't care, file it, because you can. I can see the elected official telling these chief prosecutors, well, we don't really have a case, we need to work on it, it's not solved. It's like, well, could you in good faith file a charge on him? Well, yes, we could. Okay, then do it. And then they do it because you got all this other stuff. Work with what you have. And now these guys are stuck with, okay, make something, cover up the weaknesses in your case by drawing it out and creating this big lengthy thing and creating a lot of smoke to try to hopefully and get it to the jury. And now you've got this judge who, I'll just let it fly, let it go in there, throw it in front of the jury. And then the jury, you hope that the jury is like, we hate him too, so they convict him. And then appellate courts aren't going to reverse because it's a big, complicated case and it's got a lot. So, I mean, that's kind of what I see.
That's an interesting point of view there, that you think appellate courts aren't going to reverse because it's a big case and it's political, I guess.
I think the prosecution is deliberately making it appeal proof.
Yes.
Because
you think so?
They're throwing in so much vague, ambiguous, not particularly relevant evidence that the appellate courts aren't going to want to dig through all that.
Right. I mean, this is the kind of, like, I remember the Casey Anthony trial, and I actually followed that trial because that was in our jurisdiction. And I had to follow that trial, not because I cared about it, because I didn't, but because we thought we might get that appeal. And we were like, whoever gets this short stick is going to suffer, because that would have been 20,000 pages plus. And I don't want to do a 20,000 page case. So it's like, so we were watching it. So when she got not guilty, we were like, yay, no appeal, right? And you know that the appellate courts are thinking the same thing. They're like, we don't want to look it through the thing. They're not going to, unless it's something screamingly obvious, which they're not going to give it to them. They're not going to reverse.
Now, the shenanigans of the state are largely, they involve discretionary decisions by the judge. There's things like evidence and stuff, and the appellate courts don't like to touch that anyway. So,
yeah, no, I get that. And let me get these two here. Andrew says, Gun Guy summed it up all on Friday. Inconclusive. And then Suckett says, I don't know how I feel now. I know you dated the judge from the popcorn trial, but I respect the grift. It was the state attorney, not the judge. And one of them. There's multiple. So that doesn't dox anybody. James, I know you have limited time, and I know your connection seems like it may not be the most golden. So I want to make sure I get your view, if you're still there, on how the jury was and how they were reacting on Friday, particularly to the evidence, both of the videos as well as of the tool mark expert on Friday. How did that come off to you, James?
I mean, to me, it's okay. Two parts. One, I had to be on Friday a little bit less on the jury because, let's see, this is actually really funny. The jury complained to the judge about me. They were intimidated that I was watching them.
Really?
Yeah. So they, and I mean, I'm just looking at their facial expressions and stuff. Of course, I'm not writing any personal details about them down, but because I guess I was sitting behind Murdaugh and watching them, they felt intimidated. So I had to not watch them as much, and kind of cool off a little bit. But what I can say is that I think they were a little bit more skeptical, listening to the witness, but not so much I don't know how to explain it. There's a few of them that lean in a lot, but they don't really give a lot of expression. I can only read it when they go out of their normal expression, like a few of them who
I'm sorry. You're breaking up a little, James. Breaking up a little, James.
Oh,
A lot.
Yeah, sorry. So, I mean, I do get that. Okay, I do get the judge's point of view regarding the jury. Obviously, it's a small town. They probably recognize most people in the courtroom except for you, So it's like, okay, who's this weird guy who's from out of state, right? We don't recognize him. He
Making these kind of symbols behind the jury,
Yeah. I mean, I can see that.
People don't normally stare at the jury. They're usually listening to the witnesses or the lawyers.
Right. Yeah, people saying
well,
DUI
Chanley's
guy.
There too, and she's watching them. I don't know why they're coming after me.
Well, Chanley's a woman, like a woman, an attractive woman. So I think when you have an attractive woman looking at you, most guys don't complain. Shit, most women don't complain either. So it's a different vibe. Sorry, James, it's sexism. But
check it out. Check it out, man.
God bless.
God bless.
I want to let you know, it's just a little brief commercial break interruption. Check out the new website, baby.
Oh, nice.
You got a new website?
Yes, and Farmhand Tom, man, at work. Our buddy Farmhand Tom. He's great. Yeah. So
he's a good guy.
He sent me this hat and helps me out with the new website. So I'm sorry.
Awesome.
I'm getting distracted. I got to go at 7, so I got to make sure I get that in because
sure.
This is breaking news that I've got a new website. You're the first time it's been announced.
Awesome. And is there anything else? Well, let's get your call on that. I know that both you and James have kind of the time constraints here. So Steve, what other things popped out from you from the testimony in terms of, because I haven't spoken to you last week. We had Rogan. We had, I forget his name. I call him McLovin, the other curly-haired kid, both of which testified to the video. Was that kind of the standout testimony from last week? For me, most people, when they saw...
Yeah. The only thing the state has brought forward that made me go back to hey, wait a second, was that
This guy, right? You know,
Yes.
this is Rogue. Yeah, his testimony, to me, most people thought this testimony was the most compelling, particularly right here at the end. You know, I'll just cue it up here.
At the kennels.
See, you recognize your dog?
I do.
You recognize Paul's voice?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
You recognize Maggie's voice?
Yes, sir.
You recognize that?
Oh, sorry, that broke up there for a second. Long crime's trying to censor me here. Let's,
Well, yes, the basically the
Yes, sir.
yeah, there you go. Okay, sorry, I'll do that. Long
no,
crime's
the
action.
testimony that basically what they did is they put him at the scene at 8:44 p.m. and so therefore that greatly constrained the time frames. Now it doesn't it made us, you know, people who are saying they have absolutely nothing, made us go back and look very carefully at the timeline. And I had a fan who sent me an accounting spreadsheet with the timeline on it. And Andrew and I think
did.
I said it. You got, and so
I think I got it.
you got it. Okay. And it's so we had to kind of sharpen our pencil. So, and you know, so that to me is real evidence, right? I mean, now you have him at the crime scene, 8:44. We can put a number on that, right? And then the other thing is that, and I think I have it. Oh yeah, here. The other bit of information that's hard bit of information is that his car engine starts at 9:06:48. So that means, so then I assume, and I'm just assuming, I'm foreseeing cell phone evidence that from 9:06:48 he gets in his car, drives to his wife, comes back. So if the state's theory is to fly, he kills them soon after the 8:44, and that's what 6. 10, 16, 22 minutes.
22
so
minutes.
22-minute gap there, right? That in which this murder could occur and he could have done it. Now, so that made us scratch our pencils. Now, the thing is there an alternative explanation that is exculpatory that fits within that timeline? And I think the Branca theory is still viable, but it makes it a little different. So I think that the person who was hunting, assuming that it wasn't him, there was a person hiding back in those woods, waited for him to walk off. As soon as he saw he was cleared and back in the house, then he came out and did the executions. I think that is consistent with this timeline and makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you've got a double barrel shotgun and you see dad and son there, you're going to wait until, and you're targeting the son, you're going to wait until that dad is far off and back in the house.
What's your theory for the two different weapons? Why do they choose to use
because
two different weapons?
Paul had the AR. Paul was armed. He knew he was being threatened, so he came out there with the IR.
Or the gun was already in the shed. They left guns everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, the other one little bit of evidence that I'm focused on, and maybe it's my little pet project now, is the wife's phone's last orientation change, which to me, you know, they found the killer or killers took her cell phone off her body and tossed it in the road about 2 miles from the house, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the wife's last orientation change on the phone was at 9:06:12. That is exactly the same time or the same minute as he starts his truck. So that is exculpatory. That means that he could not be two places at once. If he's starting his truck, he can't be tossing the phone 2 miles away. So now I'm not certain how strong. I mean, I want to hear experts from the defense and I want to hear more information on that. But to me, that's a big wrinkle that at least the state needs to address.
Right.
Also, these gunshot injuries to these people, especially the son, let's just stick to Paul, that resulted in a volcano of blood and brains. Okay, the shotgun was basically under Paul's chin, discharged. The gases from the shotgun, not just the shot, the gases go into the skull. The skull is exploded like a balloon. The brains splatter on the roof of the shed and then fall back down on the son. Who was in a position to hold a shotgun under his chin who wouldn't have been showered with all that too? Where's the blood all over the father?
Well, and forget about over the father. He can clean, he can shave. What about the blood in the vehicle? The vehicle that is going to be transferred from him to the vehicle. They're going to be able to pick that up.
Where's he going to clean? Back in the house? So either he's got to drive back or walk back. If he's walking back, he's leaving a trail of brains and blood all the way back to the house, or he's leaving that in the vehicle.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing too, is like I think I was doubting why the defense opened the way they did involving the grisliness of the murder. But the more this goes on, the more I'm like, okay, I kind of understand. You know, you're asking us to say the prosecution's theory requires us not just believe that he shot them, but he killed them in a very graphic, bloody, gory way, right? Not at a distance, but it seems like, Branca, from what you're saying, that was an up close shot. That was pretty much,
yes,
right under the chin,
almost chest to chest.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a certain level of,
and that's
malice.
another problem, because there's zero evidence. There's none of any animosity between the defendant and his wife and his son, and the brutality of this killing.
In fact, it's
not that
just the
anyone
opposite.
should murder anybody,
It's
but
just
it's almost
the
like the
opposite.
wife lied about her body count or something. This is never.
Have you heard the Kennel Master theory?
No.
Okay, so this is one from James from Court, and this is a rumor he heard from some folks in town. So take it or leave it, right? Take it or leave it. It's some southern country rumors, right? But there was a rumor that Maggie Murdaugh, because their relationship wasn't working good, both of them had allegations of affairs. But one of the affairs that was alleged was Maggie Murdaugh having an affair with the Kennel Master. So, I was like, okay, well, if that was the case, then I can understand some motive for them being killed, like in and around the kennels, right? Either by the Kennel Master or even by Alex, who thinks that she's there. She's there with the Kennel Master. Ends up.
So where's his body?
That's what I'm saying. So if it was Alex, it probably wouldn't be that way. Maybe it was the Kennel Master and he was
Why would he
lover.
shoot Paul over the Kennel Master?
That's what I'm saying. Like, if the Kennel Master was spurned by Maggie, let's say he was like,
maybe Paul and the Kennel Master were having a thing.
There you go. There you go. That's always possible too. By the way, I think it's Buster that people say his orientation. He's the one who had the orientation question there.
But
the
thing is that the circle of suspects is very large.
Yes.
And this is the thing. We talk about the boating accident. It's not just the family. I mean, let's not throw aspersions on the family of the dead girl. It could be friends of that girl. I mean, it sounds to me like maybe an ex-boyfriend, a boyfriend, somebody, even just a guy because evidently she was quite a looker, a beautiful girl.
She was.
Maybe just somebody, a guy who's got a lot of honor, who wants to defend this, who thinks, that guy who had something just liked her from afar.
Right.
That's very possible.
Right.
I had always had an infatuation for her, and I'm getting up the courage to approach her, and this sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, she's killed in this terrible way by this snotty family who's rich and think she's out on the boat and they're just going back home and just hate. That that to me is very consistent with the injuries. And like Branca, I think that the evidence of the relationships in this family are exculpatory. I mean, they are against him doing this. There is no evidence of animosity between this little circle of these three people. In fact, it's just the opposite. He was stealing money so that he could take him to the Bahamas and he could send him to private schools and he could build him a big thing. I mean, he was doing everything he could to be the provider. So I don't think that it's not consistent at all. And I've done a lot of criminal trials and a lot of criminal cases.
And of course, it doesn't mean he didn't kill them. I don't know if he killed them or not, right? None of us know what happened. But in a completely circumstantial evidence case, I need a motive. I need a motive to explain to me, especially when there's a reasonable alternative hypothesis of how this happened that's consistent with innocence.
And this is the thing that people harp on, and I always get this, Gosney, you'll laugh, but everybody in my chat, whenever I accidentally slip, because I'm streaming, remind you, this is for me and Soul and Jeff too, we're co-streaming, we've been co-streaming it. It's the middle of the night for us, so I'm tired. This is my my leftover monster from the stream, and I'm just chugging energy drinks, and I accidentally sometimes say, instead of guilty or not guilty, I say guilty and innocent out of the bad habit of, listening to things, and it gets in your brain, right? By even me, right? Even a lawyer, right? It gets in your brain. But there's a big difference between not guilty and innocent. He could be morally culpable. He could be morally culpable or even physically culpable, but still not guilty.
Well, see, and I want to pick on
he
Branca
could have killed them. He could have killed them.
Right.
And as a human being, I care. But as a lawyer, I don't care. Because
Right.
as a lawyer, the standard is not, did he kill him or not? Who would know? I don't know. The question is, can the state prove him guilty of killing them beyond a reasonable doubt?
Well, and I'm going to push back a little bit on Andrew Bronca's take on the opening statements, because I got to disagree with him. Everybody agrees with him too much. We got to disagree if we can.
He does. There's literally a meme
right a
about
lot.
him being.
I know,
There's literally a Bronca meme. Let me go find
It's
it.
hard
real
when
quick
you
while
when you
you're
find
talking.
when you find a little dent in the armor of perfection, you want to pick at it,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, I understand.
And as a criminal lawyer, and as an appellate criminal lawyer, it's like nails on chalkboard when I hear defense attorneys saying the word innocent. And I did not like the way he ended that. It was not clear to me that he was saying he is presumed innocent as he sits here. If you were to vote, you need to presume. I thought it was much more, you will find him innocent at the end. And that's like burden shift, and I hate it.
Yeah,
Bronca is right.
It took me a second to find this, but no, I understand, right? And obviously, the presumption of innocence is something I think I've always been strong for, and I think that there's not enough people that can go out and speak up for that to overcorrect. Right? Some people think, oh, there's too many defense attorneys, there's too many people out there, they're simping for the defense or whatever, but I think that's something we all should have embedded within ourselves, the presumption of innocence,
I mean,
because that's the legal standard.
People get emotionally invested in these cases. I don't care about Alex Murdaugh. He's probably going to go to jail for the rest of his life for the financial crimes. He's not my friend. He's not my family. I don't give a shit whether he goes to prison or not. But I care a lot about the process, and the process he gets is the process any of us would expect, and so it should be to the legal standard.
Right, yeah, because if he doesn't get that process, none of us are going to get it. That's why Rittenhouse was so big, right? It was like, if Rittenhouse doesn't get it in that case of self-defense, nobody's going to get it, because that standard will be applied, that lens will be applied to pretty much every single self-defense analysis, in the United States. Same thing here. If this is allowed, once I got, I do believe that people will be convicted on tool mark evidence, will be convicted on random
they are
videos.
all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I know they are, but I'm saying it's going to get worse, right? It only makes the compounds the problem.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve. Sorry, I had to get that out.
No, I'm just. The more you talk, I'm like cheering you on. I'm like, yeah. Come on, say it.
Yeah, I mean that evidence in particular is troublesome. But before we go a little bit more on that, I do want to talk. I think this may be the same timeline here. This was one that I got sent, the cell phone timeline.
That's a different one.
Okay, there's a lot of different ones that have been sent. Yeah. But what do you take about this? Because a lot of people make a big deal about the orientation changes, the steps, and kind of putting together that timeline.
The steps are worthless.
They assume. Yeah. Okay. So the steps are worthless. Steps are worthless. I agree with you, right? You can shake your hand and that can generate a step.
You can put your phone down. The steps are delayed in broadcast. They're not instant broadcast. They're low value data on the phone. So it sends it when it's convenient to send it. So all these time stamps on these steps is completely worthless.
Yes. Exactly.
How about the orientation change? Landscape to portrait.
I don't know. I mean, there's subtleties here. Like, does the phone have to be on? Does it have to? What's on mean? Does that mean the screen is lit, or does that mean it's unlocked?
Well, that's why they differentiated between the display on and off, and they had to go through all that painful evidence of, okay, at this time the display turned on. That's when your phone lights up if you hit it right, and it lights up. That's the display on, right? Versus
okay,
off.
but let's look at this. Just this orientation change at 9:06:12 by the wife's phone, and his car starts at 9:06:48. So the car is back at the house, right?
Right.
So he's back at the house. He gets in the car. He cannot get from his car to her phone where she's dead in 30 seconds. So the thing is so he would have to get in his car real fast and jump out and grab her phone and then put it in his truck. So that orientation change, that is the somebody is manipulating that phone at that point.
Yes.
And to me, it can't be the guy starting the car.
Right. Could be a second person.
Right. It could well be that someone shot Paul, didn't know the mom was there, saw the mom there, kill the mom. The mom, hearing the shotgun shots that killed Paul, had her phone out. He saw the phone. He's like, holy shit, I better grab that phone. It might have video on me on it. Driving away. Suddenly the phone rings because the defendant's calling it. He says, holy shit, I can't have this on me. They might be tracking it. Throws it out the window. And that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's Occam's razor. I mean, it's like, why the people are saying, well, he could have like put the phone in a tree and he could have wallowed in the thing and he could have done this. I mean, there's all these crazy Rube Goldberg kind of theories about that. It's like, what? It's okay. It's possible if you jump through 10 unlikely hoops that this could have happened the way he said. But I like to keep things as simple as possible, you know?
Right.
And
Occam's razor is typically the correct way to analyze.
And all these state witnesses trying to say, well, you know, he might throw it out the car into the trees and not get an orientation change because he might spin it perfectly flat like a frisbee into the woods. Does anybody believe that?
But you don't even need to assume that was the throw. All you have to think is somewhere that phone was moved at 9:06:12. Now that's the last time, so I'm thinking it's the throw, but it doesn't because it's on her body, right? So she's dead.
Right.
So if he's starting his car at 9:06:48 back at the house and the phone's getting moved at 9:06:12, 30 seconds difference, he can't be the killer.
Right.
I mean, I'm focused on this because to me, exculpatory evidence like this rarely exists.
Right.
And
Right.
I really am down in this rabbit hole because I'm not an expert on these cell phones. So I can't say, and people are saying, well, he has a remote start for his car. That's another one I'd get in pushback on my theory. But I mean, what? So how does that work? Like he's going to be there manipulating the phone and then he's he's a minute away. His car's on the other side of the field and he's like dialing to remote start his phone so he can run back.
We would know about it by now.
It's like, again, it's so hyper, like, well, there's a reason, there's something he could have done to make it work, but it's not reasonable. It's not the way people work.
I don't know how you guys feel about it, but the more I hear the financial crime stuff, the more I think, shit, a lot of people had motive to kill Alex Murdaugh and his family. Like a lot of people. I think
it's actually exculpatory.
Yeah, like, I do too. I really do too. I'm like, any one of these people, like honestly, somebody steals $192,000 from me, and I have to, come out of pocket for that. I mean, I'm not saying they might fall down a flight of stairs, face first, but I mean, it might happen.
Right. So like that kid they had, the housekeeper's kid, right, who got ripped off of $3.8 million.
Million dollars. Yeah.
And now he's not a kid, he's 33 years old, but he looks like a twig, right? But if I had learned that kid had been a twig, and when he discovered he'd been ripped off for $3.8 million, he went to Gold's Gym and bulked up to 220, and his whole mission in life was to murder Alex Murdaugh and everyone in his family, I would have said, it's not right, but I get it.
Yeah, yeah, it's credible. It's credible. He felt like that's like the villain backstory right there. I mean, that's it. Let's see. Mandalore Wise for $20. Thank you very much. Something I may have missed, but has the prosecution proven that they were killed and not substantially long after the last unlock?
No.
Paul and Maggie may have been involved in involved conversation, possibly explaining the ignoring of the phones. So yeah, I mean, have they proved the time of death conclusively? I don't
know, and we'll never have a good time of death.
Can't like how much, Steve? Maybe you can speak this. How accurate? What's the range that we can get predictably of the time of death, like afterwards?
They will not get a time of death to this kind of precision. We're talking minutes. No, even hours is difficult. So the medical
time of death would be greater, like the estimate of death based on like liver temperature, that kind of shit, would be greater than what we know to be the case. I mean, 911 was called at 10:06 or whatever. I mean, so we know they were dead by then. We know they were still alive at 8:44 or whatever. So like liver temperature shit's not going to give you a smaller window than what the other facts already give us.
Okay, yeah, you can't say with scientific certainty it was within this 30 seconds. Like that's never. I mean, as far as probably our lifetime, that won't be a thing. Do you think we're going to get more of the medical examination evidence though? Like we're going to get more. Okay.
I do have a theory by why the defense might be upping the gruesomeness, because usually the defense doesn't want it. Well, because it goes to, they're when they were saying he's a good guy, he loved his family,
Right.
and they're supposed to say that's open the door. Well, and that goes to the anti-motive, that a guy that loves his family this much, and look, he's stealing everybody blind just so he can support his family, is not going to commit this kind of gruesome murder. So it's in the defense's interest to up the gruesomeness and violence and hatred behind it. In fact, the more that you can paint this crime scene as a crime of hatred, if the less it shines the light on the defendant. So I think that's why they were pushing that theory about he's a good guy, and if he's like my brother and he took care of the family and everybody's close to him, he's all about protecting his little tribe and his little family.
Right.
External people he can screw.
Right. I mean, just look at John Wick. John Wick didn't go this crazy until his dog was killed.
Exactly.
At least the dog had to die.
I don't know John Wick.
And I will put. I asked some of you guys. Some of you guys in the chat were asking me to put up a poll. So I'm going to do the guilty, not guilty as of now, right? So thoughts as of now for you guys in the chat. Go ahead and see that since y'all asked for it.
I can.
Yeah, you can vote. Anybody can vote. Everybody can vote. ISO
You have to
says
put guilty, not proven guilty, because a lot of people will say emotionally, I think he's guilty.
Okay. Not.
Well, yeah,
I'll just say it's not proven guilty. People, when you're voting, it's not proven guilty. Vote that way.
The other part of this
poll.
The financial crimes evidence that's problematic for the defense is the class warfare idea that you got a jury of just everyday schlubs like you and me, and then they're talking about millions and millions of dollars. And like I'll tell you that little kid, the 33-year-old skinny kid with the mother housekeeper who died, who he stole for $1 million. That to me, I mean, that made me hate this guy's guts. I mean, I'm like, I want him to go away. I just don't want him to go away for murder unless they can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. But for the financial crimes, if I was a judge and that guy's testifying and he gets convicted, I'm maxing that kid out.
Oh yeah.
I'm maxing the defendant out who stole that from that little kid.
He stole from everybody, his brother, his best friend, everybody.
But who gives a crap about the bank? I mean, the bank is like, they're not sympathetic.
Yeah, fuck the bank. Nobody cares about the bank. They care about the friend who's crying on the stand about his like broken friendship, and they're like, well, this guy's a piece of shit. And and then they see that little
even that guy can take the hit. I mean, that lawyer, he had $200,000 to drop into the account to cover himself.
Most people do not.
He's doing fine.
But the guy that's working at Hardee's with his little cap and working every day hard, his own mother, his only child, and his mother falls down and gets killed. And I'll take care of you, son. I'm your fan. And then he robs him blind, and he's still working at Hardee's.
Oh man, I would be so pissed.
Oh God.
That one is
there
bad.
would have been an Arby's knife at the scene.
We have the meats. No, but seriously though, like I think the one thing about the financial crimes, to me, yeah, it's exculpatory. But what do you think about the jury, right? Because we're looking at it from a lawyer's perspective. Like, how do you feel the jury is going to look at that? Because most people would say, and I was talking with Vices about this. They say conviction 100% if the financial crimes come in, because the jury is just going to be like, look, this guy's a piece of shit. Even if he's not guilty of murder, he's guilty of these other things. So, we think he's a bad guy. Conviction. I think a lot of other folks are convinced that if these financial crimes come in, it's 100% conviction from the jury.
I think it's why the defense went so hard on the moral aspect of this at the beginning, because I think if you listen closely to the state's opening, they keep talking about, if you understand the broader context, if you understand all the things that led up to this, they knew. They pretended during the trial that, oh, Your Honor, the door was kicked open and now we can bring all this financial stuff. But if you listen to their opening today in the context of what we've heard in the last week, it's obvious to me that they knew or believed they were going to be able to bring in his financial stuff the whole time, because that's the only thing, this abrupt fear that his thieving was going to be disclosed, that triggered his mania killing of his wife and son. That's all built into the state's opening statement. They don't say it explicitly, but you can see it now in context. And so I think they were planning on bringing that in from the very beginning. Without that, they have no reason for this guy to kill his wife and son. None whatever.
Right. And that's the thing I'm digging for in this case, is like the thing that really, really hurts me is, give me a motive for him to kill his wife and his son. And showing that birthday video, I'm like, I didn't realize at first, but I'm thinking like, he did not have this relationship with Paul. He didn't hate Paul. He wasn't estranged from Paul. For a father to kill their son you need a damn strong motive, not just, hey, it's going to delay my case a couple days. That's literally what they're saying, is that.
And in fact, yeah, they wanted a continuance in his civil suit.
Right. And he was already going to get one because of his dying dad. So to me,
it's important to keep in mind that at the time of the deaths, this guy was still a lawyer. He was still a partner in that firm. Now we know, of course, he's been disbarred and all this, but at the time, he was still a guy capable of making, $5 million, $10 million a year in income. So if you're making that kind of income, in your head, you're thinking, well, shit, sure, I owe this bank $4 million, I owe these people that, but I can work that out. I can make that happen. I mean, it's feasible. Now, I don't think in reality he would do that. I think he's like a degenerate gambler. I think no matter how much money he earned, he would spend 10 times as much. But in his head, he would be thinking, hey, I've got the income to fix this. This is not like he'd already been disbarred. He'd already been thrown out of his firm. He had no way to solve this problem. On that day, when his wife and son were killed, he had a path to safety.
Yeah.
In his mind, at least.
In his mind, right?
Yes.
Well, and the thing, I can understand burning through a lot of money. In fact, I believe the part about him burning through a lot of money. And when you're in a cycle of doing a shit ton of drugs, especially if you're doing coke, you're doing a high end, high cost drugs.
Though.
What was it?
Opioids.
Oh, it was opioids. Okay, I could still see him blowing through a good amount of money on that, particularly. And then if he'd had some poorly structured business deals, sure, right? Like interest payments on those might be pretty high. And to me, it seems more likely that somebody that is burning through a lot of cash at some point and having to, by the way, get those off the books loans from the banks is going to turn to some shadier sources of financing at some point. And those folks, when they come to collect, they don't give a judgment, right? They do what we saw in the kennels, right? That is more characteristic of me. What we saw with I think the super chat earlier was saying, the cartels, somebody who's off the books, that the killing looks a lot more like that.
Well, so opioids, they're not like cocaine type money. I don't see that, but I can easily see him getting in a pinch financially. And instead of going to a bank, his drug dealer says, hey, I know a guy that can give you $100,000. It doesn't even have to be on the books. It's just, so they gets $100,000 from a drug dealer. Man, if that drug dealer does not get his $100,000 and the 20% vig back the next week, he will definitely come kill you and your family, because if he doesn't, he loses his entire business. I mean, you only survive by being feared and respected in that industry. So I don't think this guy was very smart. I think his great grandfather was smart. I think his grandfather was smart. I think his father was smart.
Yeah.
I think he's at the tail end of the bell curve for his family. He managed to make a lot of money from his family connections. It's a personal injury firm. It's very common. You can make a lot of money without being a very good lawyer. But I think he thought he was his progenitors and was living that kind of lifestyle that he couldn't actually support. And it wouldn't surprise me in the least to learn that someone offered him a 6-figure loan, and he said, "Oh, thanks, buddy. Yeah, I'll be happy to take that at 20-30% interest." And then when he couldn't make the payment, it wasn't like his buddy bank that just wrote it off. They were like, "No, MFer, we actually expect the money."
Andrew's coming up with another theory, because I'm all bought into that's. I'm like,
no. This is a good one. No. The drugs is a great one, because, like I said, and I completely believe that. That's kind of what I was hinting at. Is there's somebody out there, like you said, who will just flip you $100,000 because they've got $100,000 in cash, right? They can't just drop it in a bank. I mean, might as well put it somewhere
and
give it
to you to launder it,
and expecting corruption out of you. Like, I want your influence when I call back, right? I mean, there's an expectation there, and all of a sudden
he's a lawyer.
What better way to really?
So here's how it works in real life. You need money. They say, "Oh yeah, we'll give you $100,000." So you take the $100,000. Maybe you even pay it back, and then they say, "All right." In a month, they come back and they say, because it's a good way for them to launder money, and they got a loan repaid. They say, "All right, this month we're going to give you $300,000," and you say, "No, I don't need $300,000. I'm good." They're like, "No. You don't understand. You're taking a loan of $300,000, and then you're going to pay us back." And then it gets laundered as repaid debt.
Well, but it's also interesting that, and if you want revenge on him, you kill his wife and son and frame him for it. Golden.
Yeah. and you're done, and you're done, and you can even say, "Hey, I'll come for Buster too if you don't pay up, or give me."
Well,
give
I
me
had
the
another
extra, the plus
another
one. That's always available.
the 8:44 p.m. Video where he's in the background, his voice in the background, and he's like, "Hey, Buster," that man does not sound angry at all.
Yeah.
So so the rage, passion, something was said and he lost it, to me is not consistent with that at all. So then we're left with the only other option was cold-blooded killer all the way, which is not consistent with anything either. So I'm not, I'm skeptical of all the, because I know this guy. The thing is, I've dealt with financial crimes and I've dealt with thieves. People are criticizing me a lot. I should say not a lot. Some people are criticizing me.
No. That's I've gotten the pushback too, Steve. So don't worry about it. I've gotten the pushback. There's lots of people that push back on it.
They have it, but they're saying like, well, I'm saying thieves aren't murderers. It's like I've dealt with sex offenders. Sex offenders are segregated from the regular population, right? And they have their own little wing. You go into the regular population of the prison, and it's like wild. I mean, those people are yelling at you, "Hey, F you," like, and then they're making looks at you, they're laughing, they're hooting, they're threatening, they're violent, they're puffing. It's like a whole tribal dynamic, right? You go over to the sex offender wing, and they're all like hiding in corners, and they're buttoned up like this, and they whisper and they point, and it's like a whole subset of personality that ain't those violent criminals. Those those violent guys, you put those guys, that's like they would be thrown like chickens to wolves. They'd get torn apart. But in their little manipulation wing, they've got the thing. But those sex offenders, they got a different dynamic. Same thing with thieves. People that this guy, I know this guy, I've dealt with him in my context, of the embezzler, the guy that's stealing the money, the guy that's like, oh shucks, he's the swindler. He talks his way out of anything. And then the victims are always like, he was just so charming. I never thought he'd be the guy to steal. Well, of course. The guy that you don't like, you're not going to give him your money. So I just, from my experience of dealing with these people, I don't see that type of guy being this double homicide, cold-blooded murderer. I mean, and maybe I'm off, but I mean, I'm just sharing you what the best I have to express.
No, I like that, because there are those stereotypes. They're generally true, right? Those things are generally true. And that's a very, very good point there.
And then it goes back to, we must have a very compelling motive to overcome that predilection.
I like this one. Seems kind of hard to believe a guy that's as hard as a roast marshmallow his own son. It's true. I mean, this guy, he seems, he's a tall guy. I think he's my height. But he doesn't seem like he's this grizzled psychopath. That just doesn't come off to me.
Right. I mean, the smallest, weakest people will murder people, but there needs to be a reason.
Sure.
And I just don't see any reason here.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, in fact, weak people are oftentimes the most dangerous. People that are strong and confident are not dangerous. Those people are working in it. This guy was powerful. So like I said, think about the guy that always admired the pretty girl from afar and had his dream. And then all this, he hates his family. I mean, that's a weak guy, but he's going to come, a firearm. All of a sudden he ain't so weak, is he?
Right. And this guy, keep in mind, this defendant, I mean, this is how strong he is in this context. He went to his local bank and asked them for almost $1 million loan, and they gave him the money
off the books
with no paperwork.
Off the books.
I mean, that's what he's capable of doing. So whatever financial problem he's been in, and he's been in a lot of them for many years, he's able to cover it. And then he has this tremendous income earning potential. And so when the prosecution talks about this guy's it is the last thread, and that's what it broke, and that's why I'm like, no, I don't see that. On the day his family is killed, he still has the income potential. He's still getting the money from his buddy bank. It's probably all corrupt. In fact, the CEO of the bank now has been convicted of financial crimes over this and other things. Of course, it was all corrupt, but he had the means. He had the tools to try to fix it. And he had a good reason to believe he could fix it because he'd been caught before.
And he's been doing it. And he's been doing it for 10 years.
He's always been able to wave it away. And all this money he spent on his family, they had their home, Then they had the beach house for his wife. Then they had the hunting property for his sons. Then they had the jets to Key West for family vacations. All this stuff. He's not just stealing all this money to stuff it up his nose. He's spending it on his family and their lifestyle. That's not a good reason to steal money, folks. Don't steal money. But I'm just saying, there's no sign of he's doing it for his family. Where's the animus?
Right. And that's something that a lot of people can justify. That's the whole, if you steal a loaf of bread for your dying mother or something, like your sick brother, you know, people aren't going to hold that against you. They're like, okay, this was a crime of necessity, right? Versus something that, and yes, it's not, this is beyond a loaf of bread. This is millions of dollars. But if he's putting it towards his family, people can say, okay, you know, that motive does not link up with the motive to then go and kill his family that he's been doing all this thing for, going out of his way to protect. And then one comment here, Unilink says, there was a murder close to where I live, and the murderer gave his phone to his friend, so not to be close to the place of the killing. Not sure if it fits. Possible.
That's a reasonable suspicion in an investigation, but you don't prove someone guilty of a crime on that basis.
Exactly. The beyond a reasonable doubt is different than that. That requires more than that. Steve, I know you got to go soon.
When my son gets back, I got to tell you, my son, he's off at college, and it was Parents' Day. He goes to college in town, so it's not a big deal. But you know, we leave him alone. He's off at college. He stays there. He doesn't come back. Well, it was Parents' Day today, and so I think he got a little soft. And so he's like, his parents weren't there with him, so he called up, says, "Mom, can I come home and have dinner?" So we're like, yeah. So when he gets home, I'm out of here because I'm going to go see my son. I haven't seen him in a while.
Awesome. Well, let me show you real quick. Stephen Gosney, StephenGosney.com. Great looking website.
How do you
very
like
sexy.
this?
Yeah, very nice,
sexy,
Steve.
Very modern. It's not booming.
God,
Look at that.
That's better than mine. I've got to talk to Emily.
Seriously, I mean, get her in shape. You know.
You know what? Hey, if you buy to say you ought to buy a download or something and see how it works.
No, this looks really good. But anyways, go check out his book, Ideas and Answers in the Law. He's done a great job with that. He's gotten me hard. Thank you, Steve. And you know, really good guy. And
did you get your book?
No, it's Korea. It's going to take like at least a week if you.
Oh, Vice has got it pretty quick.
Well, Busan is quicker. It's a port city, you know. Seoul, we have snow. We got North Korean like drones we got to worry about. You know, there's other things they got to invade up here. Also, I'm off to Thailand in like 5 hours, so you know, I'm going to deal with my business visa down there. So I'll get it when I get back.
Okay, well, we shipped it like last week, so you should be getting it soon.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much for that. Definitely appreciate that, Steve.
No, it's my pleasure.
And let me get these locals chats here because a couple came in. Ben says, I know that 300 AAC and 300 blackout are the same thing because I am an expert.
Yeah.
Matt says, what does the timeline show? Apparently, he is at the kennels for the Snapchat video. He then sends some text to his wife about going to see his mom. The vehicle starts at some point. What is the basic timeline for all this evidence? Well, if you want to go to the timeline, I had that pulled up earlier, but essentially, he could still be in that video because that video was like 8:40ish.
8:44.
8:44. He could still be in that video, right? And let me just play it, right? So I've got the video. I've actually got that video. I closed it. He could be in the kennel video, you know, where he's talking to the dog, saying, Bubba, you know, come here, Bubba. And he could still be going to see his mom. He could have been there and then been like, all right, I'm leaving. You know, he could have left. He had time to get back to the house, get in his car and leave, or go back and try to take a nap and then, you know, hear some gunshots and then he, you know, runs away, whatever. Lots of times for him to not be there. That video does not place him decisively at the crime scene.
By the way, it does the opposite. They were alive.
Right. And they were talking.
I mean,
he didn't sound like there's animus. He wasn't like, hey, Maggie, come here, you dirty, you know, harlot. Right. He wasn't.
Go get my 300 BLK.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, I got, you know, come suck on the end of this shotgun. No, I mean, that wasn't something.
I'm going to send I'm going to send you the timeline that was sent to me by one of my fans. It's really excellent. So I just put it in the email to you so you can link it up there.
Okay, got it. You sent it by email. Do you know how to use the private chat, Steve? Can you put it in the press?
Hold on a second. I don't know. Can I attach a spreadsheet on the private chat?
No. If it's a link, it's a
spreadsheet. It's an attachment.
Spreadsheet. Okay. Well, what does it say generally while I'm pulling it up?
Well, it's just I don't know. I mean, it's a big, complicated spreadsheet. That's the thing. I mean, it's hard to summarize these things. So
I love our ADHD members. They're just like
she was funny. She's the person that did this is an accountant.
Yeah,
and
I love it.
And she's saying, yeah, they're amazing. The one that did it and sent it to me was an engineer, and it's just crazy when these people will put together the details. Because for me, I'm just all over the place. I can never get this detail. But okay, let me pull this up real quick. Okay, so here it is, timeline, right? So I guess this is Alex's timeline. Yeah, you look. There's three people. There's Alex. There's the wife,
Maggie, and Paul, and then Roger Gibson. Who's Roger Gibson? I guess. Oh, the guy Rogan Gibson was the Rogan buddy. Gibson. They spelled that wrong. Yeah. Okay.
But go back and look at the 844 to 906 time frame is the key time frame.
844 is here.
Yeah, that's
so 844 is the dog video, right? And there's no steps during the dog video.
Forget the steps.
The steps are useless.
Okay.
But people might ascribe information to that and try to figure it out, but it's a pointless exercise.
Last text from Maggie, phone locks. Fuck the steps. Fuck these 238 steps. Alex called Maggie 902. So between this and this, there's like 18 minutes or so. What is that? 17 minutes? 16 minutes? I don't know.
Okay,
something like that.
But let's assume those steps were on the phone was him running from the crime scene all the way back to the house so that he could get into his car.
Sure.
That's what the state's going to say, right?
Oh, yeah.
Dropping pieces of blood and brain everywhere along the path.
By ditching his bloody clothes.
Yes. Where are the clothes? Where's
the clothes aren't there. There's no blood on anything. Gunshot residue. I mean, I know you guys are going to laugh. That doesn't mean shit because Bronco, you're probably covered head to toe in gunshot residue right now.
Every day. I carry a gun every day. So I would test positive for gunshot residue every day.
Right. Well, and he has a shotgun at the time that he was picked up. So, he says he went and armed himself. So that's consistent with him having a gunshot. I mean, it's useless.
I know you can't show it on YouTube Live. You get in trouble, but I'm armed right now.
Yeah.
Testing me for GSR right now. I'd test positive.
You test positive. ISO says his son was messing around with a left of center guy in town, and then he was found dead on the side of the road. By the way, Alex was there when the police showed up. Yes, he was there, and he said he was going to arm himself with a shotgun. So he went and touched a shotgun, which is what they had to admit to when they asked the cop on the stand, "Hey, could handling a shotgun leave gunshot residue?" And he's like, "Yeah, perhaps." And it's like, "Fuck you, perhaps." Like, most likely, you dumbass. But that was what I took from that.
It's like a fine dust that gets everywhere. Now, I did notice that the defense said in their opening when I listened to it today that he tested positive, but if he had fired a weapon, he would have been swamped with gunshot residue. I think that part of the defense opening was bullshit because they don't actually test every centimeter of your person. And they don't really quantify gunshot residue. It's either positive or negative.
Well, and the thing is, FDLE, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, to their credit, has stopped testing gunshot residue. They don't even have the kits anymore because it's such useless information.
Everybody has guns.
Yeah, well, not only that, but you got a cop with a gun on his side who arrests you and grabs you by the hand. Now you got gunshot residue.
Right, exactly, and then you're done, right? Or somebody who's carrying it concealed, and they just, they touch their, hand.
It doesn't say. It does not prove anything, so it's a useless test, and so they've even stopped testing it at FDLE. They take those test cutaways. And I remember because I was prosecuting back at the time when there was like the one expert that was there for like 30 years who was the gunshot residue expert guy, and he was like getting ready to retire, and they didn't want to kick him out, so they still had
time.
Not his time. And I remember because I called this guy for evidence because I thought, at the time I was prosecuting, I thought it was cool evidence. I'm like, oh, there's gunshot residue on it, right? And so we did a deposition of this guy who's coming in and he's near retirement. And I'm sitting there, I'm the prosecutor, and I'm trying to say, okay, so what you're saying is this. He's like, no, I can't say that from that. I was like, oh, what you mean is this then? He's like, no, I can't say that either. I'm like, what the hell are you saying? You're saying nothing. And like, so basically I'm like, you're absolutely useless. And, obviously that is true now that I'm kind of a little older now, but yes, that's it.
Well, what do you think they're doing with the gun generally the gun evidence? Because it seems like with some of the witnesses, particularly like this guy, right? When they're bringing in this guy here, and then this guy as well, right? This little twink. Both of those guys, it seems like to me they're almost trying a parade of guns approach, which I think would work in like a left of center city, right? That would work in maybe I don't know, in Atlanta maybe or something like that, in a red state or a Charlotte.
A hypothesis of possible. It's possible this guy did this. He had access to the guns. He had access to the ammo that was used in this killing. He could have done it.
Which isn't that rare. I mean, because we heard from the guy who built the gun, right? Who built the blackout, that he's built a lot of blackouts and that it's popular for hog hunting, right? And that stands up, right?
This one family bought 3 of them.
Right.
One family.
And in fact, and it was kind of a faddy gun, like it was very much the fad amongst gun guys. I remember when 800 or 300 Blackout came out, and I was like, oh, that sounds pretty intriguing, because I had some SKSs which shoot the round, which is an AK round, and this is supposed to be comparable to that in weight, ballistics, and stuff. And so at the time, I remember it was like all over the place. 300 Blackout. Somebody was promoting it, and it was a very popular cartridge. It was like the cool cartridge to have. Look, I got my new gun, and it's got 300 Blackout. Ooh, that's the latest thing. So it was I think it's kind of petered off in popularity. Now it's just one amongst many. But at the time we're talking about, this was sort of a fad. At least that was my impression.
Especially for hog hunting.
And Southerners who get off on, I got the coolest night vision,
the coolest new gun. I spent everybody in our chat, by the way, was blowing up when they said the price of those guns. They're like, oh man, you got ripped off. Look what the fuck, $9 grand for what is it, 2 or 3 blackouts? People were flipping out saying they overpaid.
No.
From a custom maker, no.
Really?
You can get them. No.
Because they were thinking, what's the price on Palmetto State Armory or wherever else they would buy it?
$500, $600. But if you want the gun to actually run reliably, people who know how to put guns together give you a different product than people who are just putting together catalog ordered parts. It's not the same.
Oh,
yeah.
By the way, I own several Palmetto Armory 5.56 guns. I think they make a good product. But there's a reason why some AR platforms are $600 and some are $2,600.
Right. So this one for you, Steve. Unilink says for £5 says, Andrew, Steve, what would be if the gloves don't fit, you must acquit piece of evidence for this case? So Steve, I'll let you take your Johnny Cochran moment. What's your Johnny Cochran on this?
I'm really fixated on this timeline with this 906 car starting along with the last movement of the wife's phone. I mean, I always like to find that key thing, and I don't know, I'm not good at rhyming or rapping, but I would find something to do with that.
Right. And that's right here in the timeline here. Let's see if I can zoom in.
It's a weird dilemma for the prosecution, isn't it? Because the prosecution spends so much time talking about how important the cell phone data is. Right. But this piece of cell phone data is inconsistent with guilt.
See, look. And the thing is, so let's look at this real carefully. Okay, so there it says 90648 is the car engine start.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Let me see. Where's the
and literally, by the way, 90648.
And now look just
later, he's calling Maggie while he's starting the car. Right.
Stop. Time out. No, look before that. Just before that,
he's calling her again.
90612. Maggie's phone changed orientation. This was the last orientation change. Okay, so that's the two things. 90612 changed orientation on Maggie's phone. 90648 car engine started. That's what I would focus on right there.
And what I would focus on is the absolute lack of motive.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Steve is wrong. I would hit that hard as well. That's kind of the hard reason not to convict. But the soft reason not to convict is this guy loved his wife and son everywhere. There's no evidence to the contrary. And a guy just doesn't execute his lifelong wife and son for no reason except financial stress. I mean, and at that time, he wasn't even under that much financial stress. He was in a position he'd been in 100 times before where he always made the problem go away. He waved his hands. He got the loan. He got whatever. And he was fine. He'd been doing this for more than a decade.
To hear Hunch says, I'm not sure I'm the first to say it, but this trail on the whole backstory reminds me of the 2-month story arc of For Days of Our Lives or As the World Turns. I mean, it is a very crazy 2 months, right? But it has to add up. It has to paint a picture and inform a motive, right? Just because a bunch of crazy shit seems to be happening to this family doesn't mean that, oh, well, the family must be at fault, right?
Well, I would just say, I guess, that romance novels make a lot more money than romance does. and so I expect the people who are kind of romanticizing this killing like it's a, I don't know,
Southern horror, or
yeah, right.
Drama,
I'm sure.
Time to Kill, Cape Fear,
I'm sure their YouTube streams are making a lot more money than those of us who are just talking about the actual legal aspects of the case.
Oh yeah, people hate it when I say it's boring too. And I'm like, this is not what it is. This is not saying this is not sexy. People trying to glam this evidence up to gas up these experts is something they're not. They're trying to make it exciting to pitch to a certain market of people who want the story, want the engagement. I'm not going to
want that,
lie.
and they'll pay for that, and you make a lot of money doing that.
Oh, can I dish on?
Model.
Well, I don't know. I better not dish too hard.
Hold on, let me read this one too because I guess I fucked up. So ISO says you read my comment wrong. It's not Paul I'm talking about. And sorry, ISO, I assumed you were, but that's my mistake. I assume you're talking in this comment about Buster. So saying that Buster was messing around with the left of center guy. Yes, I think that's the one where he said the Murdaugh family name 40 times. But to me, that evidence doesn't prove motive here. Buster's not on trial, number one. And number two, the Murdaughs are very popular in town. They're pretty big. There's several of them. So just mentioning their name in a police report, I need to see more that connects that incident to
By the way,
crime.
where's the evidence? Where's the police report? Where's
right.
anything?
Why wouldn't they use that if that was relevant to this trial? It seems like they're using anything that's fucking possibly relevant. So why are they not using that? If they're
and a lot of stuff that arguably is not relevant, like all this financial stuff.
I would agree it's not relevant, and it's completely not relevant. But they're
still
going
trying to bring it in.
So to me, that shows that the case is weak. Also, two more here questions. Ben SC says, legal mindset. And who else could Alec have been borrowing money from to keep his house of cards from falling in? Perhaps some people he does not even want to mention. Well, yeah, obviously you're not going to want to you're not going to want to mention drug dealers or, cartel members or whoever else, right? That's not going to be something you want to mention.
Right. You want zero paperwork on a loan? Borrow money from a drug dealer.
Yeah. And then he says,
you want an absolute inability to have that discharged without paying it back? Borrow money from a drug dealer.
Yep. And then last, he said, thermal optics and suppressors run the cost up to that easily. And the 300 makes the AR a very valid hunting weapon. 223 does not cut it. I'm not a huge hog hunter, so I don't know about 223 versus blackout.
So the thermal sight can easily cost as much as the rifle, and a suppressor can easily cost as much as the rifle.
Well, let's just say I heard the numbers on it. At least I think I'd remember it was $2,000 for the thermal sight, $1,000 for the suppressor. So the guy still was getting paid a premium for the build, but I wouldn't pay that much. I don't have that much money, but if I had that much money sitting around, maybe I would. I don't know. I mean, who knows? Somebody was saying that there might be some shenanigans about the suppressors and what the guy was doing. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of money for a gun. I know that.
Right. Yeah. What was that? What would be the theory with the suppressors? That the guy was scamming?
They weren't ATF certified, so you got to pay the tax stamp on suppressors.
What was that? But see, I don't have what's the gun that you used to use in competition? It's so cool, Andrew Bronca.
A lot of them.
No, but the one that Schindler talks about, the
Schindler,
the 45.
Yeah, the 45, 1911. Yeah, sure.
Oh, 1911. Okay.
Well, what's the name of the brand? It's like
Wilson Combat.
Wilson Combat. Yeah. Those are
right. So you can buy a 1911 pistol for $500, and it runs like garbage. it doesn't actually work. Or you can buy a 1911 for $3,000, which is what I did, and it ran for 100,000 rounds perfectly. So, some of these platforms, the amount of money you spend actually makes a difference.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, also, apparently there was a theory about. Did you guys catch any theory about the dog kennel water? Because someone brought that up, and I don't know. Is that a thing? Like the whether the water was running properly or not, or whatnot. And then there was the brain water part. But I'm just not. Okay, there's a bunch of
water. It's just a joke.
There's a bunch of weird
because
things.
they're
like
talking about rainwater. It sounds like brain water.
Probably.
Yeah.
How about like the chicken, right? The dead chicken. Was that supposed to be exculpatory evidence? Like the blood from the chicken? Okay.
I don't think so. There's
the
blood everywhere.
Yeah.
The reason this
exactly.
case, it's amazing that this prosecution is making this case so boring, because this is one of the most interesting fact pattern cases that I've ever seen on trial. I mean, it is a real whodunit. There's a lot of interesting, everybody's got their theory. It's the evidence is fascinating. The circumstances, everything around it is dramatic and tremendous. But this prosecutor is making it the most boring trial I've ever watched.
Really?
Like,
it's horrible.
I mean, that stuff that as a practitioner, the worst thing I would do is bore the jury if I'm the state. The evidence, if there is some evidence here that's just burning, it's all buried with useless information and trivia. They spend a day on a guy who goes all through this science for a full day. And it says, okay, so did you find anything? And it's like, nope, doesn't have anything to do with anything. So we spent a day saying nothing happened. You could do that in 30 minutes. You could say, okay, so you tested this guy.
Well, you guys do realize that a lot of outlets really went on his evidence and said, oh, this is big, this is huge, because his evidence, the tool guy, says conclusively that the gun that was near Maggie Murdaugh's body, the shells from near the body, were fired consistently on the property for a long time. So that same rifle that ejected, casings near the body was the same rifle that had been firing for a long time.
Where is it?
Well,
Right.
but that is exactly the science evidence that we are disagreeing with, but also that does not disprove the Bronca theory of killing. The fact, and I think that that's one of the reasons that the defense is not pushing it real hard, because it doesn't disprove the reasonable hypothesis of innocence that we've propounded here.
Right.
I mean, if the rifle that matched those rounds was discovered in
or in
the trunk
or in the parents at the parents' house,
right? I mean, then you would have something, but the weapon's gone. So in that 10 minutes, he washed the blood and brains off himself, put clean clothes on, made the bloody clothes disappear, and made the murder weapon disappear, and then he drove to his mother's house. I mean, we know when he left because we have the telemetry on all that. So we know the vehicle, his car, Alex's car, actually moved. So in 10 minutes, he was supposed to pull all that off. Right. That gives me reasonable doubt. I don't know if he killed him or not, but I have reasonable doubt about it.
Yeah, and I'm not sure these conclusions that they're drawing. Like, I mean, Court TV, this is my girl Chanley over here. I always look for her in the courtroom. But I mean, this is the quote right here.
We all
do. The slut, her bikini picture is still top notch. But anyways, the sled expert testified that the Blackout 300 shell casings found near Maggie Murdaugh's body were cycled through the same rifle as older casings found on Murdaugh's property. But then she goes on and said, state says she was murdered by a gun her husband owned. I think they didn't say that in the witness examination. I think they said that in their opening, right? That their position is that. But I didn't hear them say on direct or on redirect that it was conclusively the same weapon.
No, it wasn't. He said they were cycled through, not fired through.
Yes.
But still, I mean, and I missed that. I was out at that point when that testimony came over. I think there was a lot of talk over. I had to leave. But at the point you were talking about that guy was very squirrely. And that was, when I was listening to the testimony, I could hear of him. He wasn't making a definitive statement about anything. Now, did he end up saying that it was cycled through? Did he actually, this was absolutely 100% cycled through the same weapon?
So it's funny, when I heard I re-listened to the opening statement of the defense today, and he spent a lot of time talking about just listen to people, listen to them, use your common sense. Did they seem to be telling the truth? And I wonder if he deposed that Toolmark guy. Sure. And he heard how every time you ask him a yes or no question, he gives you a 100-word response. And he's like,
Sure.
you know what? I'm going to prepare the jury for that, because that completely removes credibility. I mean, if you're asked a yes/no question and you talk for 100 words and then ultimately you say it was indeterminate. Okay, you could have just said that.
Yeah, no, I like it. It was something that he had to evade around, and frankly, I think that to me, and Steve, you've been in court. I don't know how juries take that, and we obviously don't know how this particular jury will take that, but I think in general, most human beings do not like evasive answers, and to me, that definitely did look very squirrely to me when the defense came up and said yes or no, and he refused to say it, even though it clearly was a no. The answer was clearly a no. He didn't want to say that, though. I think because of the science that he knows that you and other people are going to bring up, and I think he knows the defense witnesses is going to bring up the counter evidence, right, and the other expert testimony that says your field is bunk. So I know he didn't want to say yes or no, because I know that if he said that, it would get potentially thrown out.
Well,
I mean, am I right there? Or?
Well, I'll tell you, you say I know juries. I've done probably 80 jury trials.
You know better than I do. I'll put it that way. You know better than I do.
Well, fair enough. But I mean, but I'll tell you, I'm not really a great people reader. I will just say, and I'd say I'm on the bottom half of people readers. So I usually get somebody to second chair who I really respect as a people reader to kind of like pick the jury and do that stuff. But the way I deal with that is that I don't pay attention to what the jury says. Okay. I look at the way I look at things. I listen to things and I try to react. Like part of it is that I just pay attention to what's coming across from this bench and what's coming across from the witness. And I'm listening. I'm like, how do I react to that? How is that striking me? And I don't know if you remember when we were covering the part about the I did it versus they did it, or like how they treated or I or something. There was this I, and we were sort of half paying attention, but I'm sitting there when I'm listening to this stuff, I'm listening to it like I'm a trial attorney. And when he said that, it's like all of a sudden my antenna went bing. Something's wrong with that, right? Because that wasn't what I heard at all. But then there was no objection. It kind of passed. I was like, what? He said, what? And then of course the defense comes back and hammers him on that and said, let's slow it down. And then the guy's sticking by he's like, no, I'm sticking to it, which is ridiculous because first of all, I don't think he said it, but like there's disagreement on whether he did or not, right? But I think anybody who heard something now, you're lying to me. Why are you lying to me? You're selling me a story. Right. And then okay, let's assume we mishear things differently. The cop is going to say, I just got a confession. I'm not going to write it down. I'm just going to toss it away, not put it in my report, and ignore it until the trial. I mean, come on. That's so ridiculous.
That was the statement. And by the way, that was the statement of like, I feel so bad or like,
yeah, I've done them wrong or
I've done them wrong. Which they had to slow down at 1/3 speed and kind of review and say it was like they may have done it. Okay, here you go. I see.
I have that spooled up there if you want it.
Thank you. Yeah, go rock and roll.
Do I do it or do you do it?
No, you do it. You're controlling this. This is your screen.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
and you definitely saw a traumatic picture, and I know it's not hard or not easy. I know it's hard. And sitting there talking today is tough. It's just so bad. They did it so bad.
They did him so bad.
Traumatic picture that he saw, Paul and Maggie. What did he say?
It's just so bad. I did him so bad.
No, he said
I
that.
did
No,
him
he
so
didn't.
bad.
He didn't say that, did he? Listen to this guy right here.
Yeah. I mean,
So I have to be honest. So when I hear it, I can hear it either way. When they say it at full speed, when they slow it down to 1/3 speed, I definitely hear they.
Right.
But it's the kind of thing where you look at an image, and two people can look at an image and like, oh, it looks like a bird. No, it looks like a woman. And if one is suggested to you beforehand, that's the one you see, and that's what I see here.
Yeah. It's the what is it? The Rorschach
But
test?
to me, the killer component here is not how you interpret what he said, but how the officers responded to what he said. If they interpreted, the officers, two of them, there in the car, interpreted that as a confession, they'd be like, okay, what do you mean? right? Instead, they let it go for 14 months before they charge this guy with murder. That's insane. Obviously, in the moment, they didn't hear it as I did him bad.
Exactly. Now
And
it's
he's crying and blubbering, and you say a lot of things. Sometimes you're really emotional. You say something you don't really intend. Or the words come out wrong. Very understandable in that moment. Very understandable in that moment.
And I wonder how much, because we got this as a national or even an international case. I wonder how many people are getting mixed up by the Southern accent, because I speak Southern. I'm a redneck. I'm an honorary hillbilly. Do you know that?
Are you? I mean, you got that city boy Florida shine. I'm sorry.
I know that.
I speak as a Miamian, right? So I'm not Southern at all, right?
I understand.
Definitely not.
Well, I have family from D-land.
Okay. Oh, I know D-land. Yes,
okay, so we're Southerns.
Yes.
We're a minority in our own state. Florida's
the
state
alligators ate those bodies.
Yeah, Florida's the state that you go south to go north.
Yeah.
But so it's. But
by the way, they're asking, are you feeling better? I bet he's feeling better after I bought the brilliant book, Ideas and Answers in Law, 2nd edition. I would just say I have people literally showing me their clips where they bought your book. They're like, look, I've got my book in, and I'm enjoying your book. So you're doing a good job. Let me just pull this up right here.
Father at this moment.
He is, Andrew.
I'll ignore what's on that table. I'll ignore what's on that table there in front of him. I was like, let me pull this up. Oh wait, there's something sitting on the table there.
I did not write Steve's book, but I compelled Steve to write that book.
Did.
Yeah, no you're compelling a lot of people, and it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing to be inspiring people.
By the way, Andrew English, you too, MFer.
Oh, I'm already working on one right now. That's a secret.
Okay, good.
So it's already in the process. It should be done in a couple weeks. But anyways, yeah, no, I'm.
Oh, but I was wondering about how much the Southern drawl is affecting the I-they dynamic.
Because I like the Southern accent.
No, but I mean, but people that are
the most credible witness was Rogan, and Rogan had the thickest Southern accent.
Well, no, I'm just saying when they hear him say they did it or I did or whatever, I'm wondering.
And he's sobbing, and he's
I'm wondering if that drawl is interfering with the communication and people are hearing it, because I hear it very clearly as they, even at full speed.
Steve, the jury are locals.
That's what I'm saying. So but are people that are commenting in the comments in the chats and they hear I'm wondering if there might be a regional distinction.
Yeah,
sure, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the commenters may. And look, there's people. Look, Unilinks is sending us British pounds over here. When you go to a different country, think about us, shit. I don't understand Brits. I don't understand Aussies. You all say shit. I'm like,
well, you're a Miamian. Miamians are marginally Floridians.
I know. I understand like Latinos better, right? When they're talking in Spanglish, like I get that. That I 100% understand. But regular English is even troubling for me. Yeah, well, if it's a girl. On the flip side, then if you guys were the prosecution, what would be your gloves absolutely fit? You must convict. They've got nothing so far. We would need more evidence as the prosecution. That's the answer. I mean, you may not like that.
No,
but I think the prosecution put it out in their opening. They're like, we have a bunch of jigsaw puzzles. We're going to put them together, and we want you, the jury, to conclude that by putting them together, this hypothesis scenario of how this might have happened, that this guy's been proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
No, I'm going to be a prosecutor for a little.
Okay, put on your prosecutor hat.
I'm going to put the prosecutor hat. In fact, the public defender's office, they always come to me when they want the prosecutor side, because I prosecuted for 6 years.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, all right, but I think I could do a hell of a lot better job than these guys. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just flattering myself. But the first thing I'd say is, okay, we know for a fact that he was at that dog at 8:44 in the p.m., right? He was there, and there was only 3 people there. You could hear 3 people. And there's video evidence that he's there. And he came back, and he lied. He lied to the cops for months. And he thought he's going to just get away, and he's going to shine himself out of everything else, right? And you'll find that the gun that was used, that we have a missing 300 blackout rifle. And they were killed by a 300 blackout rifle. And that gun, you can't tell from a shotgun, and he's got a shotgun right next to him. So we have a missing rifle that comes from their arsenal, killed with the same caliber on the same night. And you can see that he kills them, he blasts them. What's he do? Takes those guns, gets in his car, goes back to Mama's house, and then dumps the guns, washes up, comes back to the scene with the shotgun, calls Mama.
Mm-hmm.
right? Because he knows, because he's a former prosecutor, that they can't match up that 12 gauge shotgun. So he comes back there, he knows that's matched, but he dumps that AR, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's simple, and we've walked the timeline. We've walked the timeline, and it's perfectly matches up. When he shot him, he went back to his truck, gets in his truck, goes there, and comes back. I mean, lay that out clearly.
Yeah, I would say stay away from the step shit and just say, hey, we reconstructed this, and we've been able to come up with a reconstruction that 100% can fit. So this is a timeline that we can fit. This can be something we put together and make work based on the timeline. Take it and then do it your own way, create your own narrative, right? And say, hey, look, we've said this is entirely possible. Get up somebody who can do the reconstruction. It's entirely possible he could have done this, and because of that, because of the burden of all these other possibilities, right? He needs to be found guilty. He's the only one. Right.
I saw someone in the comments say, well, he could have been wearing a painter suit. That's what protected him from all the blood and brains. Yes, he could have. Where is it? You have to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Where's the goddamn painter suit?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got their theory. That's why it's a fascinating case. And I mean, the prosecution, they should be very clear on what their theory is. The fact that we don't know it is what keeps screaming to me that they don't have one. And they're just going to throw it all up there and make it confusing and lots of fluff and lots of smoke and get it to the jury. I mean, that's why they aren't clear, and that is absolutely against every. In fact, in my book, the second edition, there is the first third of the added chapter on prosecutorial misconduct and closing. The first third was derived from my training of prosecutors in the prosecutor's office, was how to conduct a case cleanly and present evidence with a theme and a narration, and you lay out your evidence methodically and you go close. I mean, it's how to do a prosecution, and they are not following that. Now, why are they not following that? Because to me, it's because they don't have the case. Right. So that's why we're concluding this. Now, maybe they haven't closed yet. They haven't closed yet.
No, they've not closed yet.
So it may be that they're crescendoing into their big bombshell evidence that's going to be like, and if they do, Andrew and I will spin right around 180 degrees and say, well, gee, that's it.
Yeah, and I said all the time, I can be convinced by any piece of evidence. In fact, right now, by the way, you guys in the poll, you're 70-30 for 70% not guilty of murder and 30% you think he's guilty as of now. I'm willing to be proved. And by the way, that poll has been shifting, right? It started 80-20, right? In the beginning, it started 80-20 before we saw any evidence. People were 80-20, but I'm willing to shift over and I'm willing to have that change to guilty. But you've got to prove it to me. And at this point, to me, it hasn't gotten there. One question from locals was, can you explain the 10-minute window? And he clarified that he was talking about the timeline of the death, the 10-minute window
Steve.
of the death.
The 10-minute window. Okay. Or I don't know. Where's that coming from? Was that in the openings?
The 10-minute window that Alex could have done the killings. I believe that might have been mentioned in the openings. Yeah.
The operative timeline here is 8:44 was the last. That was the video with the dog that we know they were all alive and together at the doghouse. 8:44, right? The next time that we have is 9:06 that's relevant to anything, and that's when his truck starts and the last orientation of the phone. So between 9:06 and 8:44 and 9:06, that is the period of time in which we think the murders occurred. All right. But that is what? Let's see, 44. I always have that 22 minutes.
Sure.
So it only takes 1 to 2 minutes to get from the doghouse to the house by car, I guess, or by vehicle of some sort. So 8:44 is the last movement. If he gets in a vehicle at some point within the next few minutes, drives back to the house, that's only 5 minutes. So we still have an unaccounted for 17 minutes. That's enough for somebody who's watching in the back to come out and kill both of them and leave and do the other activities.
Right.
Right. So that's why that operative 22 minutes, there's enough room for him to leave, go back to the house, for the murder to occur. And then he doesn't even know. He goes off to mom's house, doesn't know they're dead. It's dark. Their body's on the ground. There's no movement. He's just off and he's driving to his mom's house and he comes back and then, oh my God, he discovers them. But the murders had occurred an hour earlier. So I think that is to me the most reasonable hypothesis of what happened here. In fact, if I was the police, I would be. Here's what the police should be doing. Okay, and it's they should have been triangulating cell towers and getting lists of people off those cell towers for other possible suspects. So the fact that they're zeroed in, they have his phone and they're going to have him tracking to the parents' house and back, right? But those cell towers will also have a catalog of other suspects that they need to be systematically eliminating.
Yeah. There was one comment here. Oh yeah. Somebody told me on Rumble, Johnny Rep said, Andrew and Steve, check out Rob's oratory defense I guess on Jeff's stream. I'll check that out another time, but thank you guys. I don't know if I caught that one. I guess he gave a good defense there. Let's see. Sorry, there was one more. No, I think I caught everything there. Trying to make sure I get all questions on all the platforms, but it seems like we're caught up. What are you guys looking for the next week? So just to kind of switch directions. So we've got the financial crimes. Do you think they're coming in?
Yes.
Yes. So the financial crimes are going to come in. And you're muted, Bronca.
Well, if I was picking, you're muted, Bronca. If I was picking on something, I would say the judge should limit the financial crime exposure. It should be, but see, I don't think these people can resist. They just got to go on and on and on. They love to hear themselves talk, sort of like all lawyers, including myself included. But they got a way of dragging it out like I've never seen before. So the financial crimes evidence is going to take weeks, sadly. The
judge said, and Steve, did you hear that when the judge said, I don't care if we're here for 6 weeks, whatever?
No, this judge, I'm tiling into the judge, and I believe him.
Hold on, let me ask you guys a question. Would you stay tuned for a 6-week financial crime plus murder trial? Are you guys gonna be riding out every single day of that trial? You guys are laughing. Bronco,
what? I didn't hear that question.
If this turns into a 6-week, like it's already 2 weeks in, right? So
What?
if they allow the financial crimes in.
You're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Yeah. yeah. That's
No,
what I heard.
well, actually, I've got a lot of things coming up this next week. In fact, I'm going to got my judicial interview coming up tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not going to be in tomorrow. And then Friday, I'm going to do a stream with on Rumble.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but the chat is like absolutely not. Nope. I mean, a lot of I'll say a lot of the chat, they've told me we're out for the financial crimes. They're like not for
what
that
we should
long.
do is we should have like a financial crimes bat signal. So when that testimony is over, we can send up the white smoke out of the chimney, and then we can come back in.
And that's what I said.
Well,
I'd be
at some
happy to do
point,
that.
at some point, I hit Nick's Vegas trip. So
yeah, exactly. Like you're running into.
Go? What mindset are you going?
No, I'm not. I'll be in. I don't know when he's going to go, but I'm going to Thailand and I'll be in Japan for a while, and then I'm coming back here, and then I've got to. I will be maybe in the U.S. in March, in April, but I'm not 100% on that right now. It depends on some timing of things, but that's my general plan. But I wasn't planning on making anything in February.
Hey, if you're in the U.S. in March or April, let me know. Maybe we can meet up.
I will definitely let you know. And actually, I was thinking of adding Vegas to the rotation. I know Vices is planning to go as well, so we may try to do a Vegas thing. And I actually know some people with a podcast studio in Vegas, so I may be able to borrow their studio.
I think I'm in Vegas again in April anyway. So
there you go. That would be a good combo. The Vices Bronca and Mindset Live from Vegas.
Well, no, it's May. It's May. I may have trouble talking the wife into 3 Vegas trips in a quarter, but I'll try.
Yeah, no, it'd be fun. It'd be fun. But yeah, when I get the timing, I'll let everybody know. But like I said, at US, when I come, I'll stay for a month so I can go, circulate around and see different folks. And if any trials
meet up, so just let me know where you are and I'll fly in and we can meet up.
Sure. And if any trials are going on, guys, I do plan on stopping by because I know we got a lot of trials coming up. We got Sarah Boone, we got Courtney Clenny.
I want to do the Clenny trial. When is that coming up?
I was going to do the Clenny trial, and I canceled my flight in December because it was ridiculously expensive. A lot of other stuff was going to be that week, and luckily they delayed it. So they have a hearing this month, but
Monday.
But
tomorrow.
It's a hearing, so
right.
we'll know if it's going to schedule a trial or we'll know if it's going to be
it's a status update. tomorrow.
So it could be
Monday.
a nothing burger. People think it's the trial because they're dumb and don't know how that's.
Can I ask you this, guys? Because
Yeah.
there's somebody in the chat, Jim here in the chat, who's a mechanic, but he's got the wrench. I'm going to ask you this because I'm applying to the 5th DCA position, right?
Okay. All right.
Now there's 10 people. There's 6. They probably will come short in that list to 6. If I make the short list of the 6, should I tap into the chats and the Ricada followers and the law of self-defense and tell them to contact Governor DeSantis to try to get me on the 5th?
Why not?
No. Oh.
Yeah, see, we have two.
Yeah,
two.
well, actually, no, sorry. No, never mind. No, because at large, no. But maybe a select group. Let me put it that way. Let me
If you mean ask Nick to contact them, yes, of course. If you mean ask Nick Universe to contact them, oh my God!
Because you're gonna get some people that are just yeah, they're yeah,
Absolutely not. Okay, well,
Yeah.
don't tell anybody. All right.
yeah. No. We're not gonna tell anybody. None of the 1,113 people watching right now are
It's
gonna
just
know
between
anything
us.
about it. By the way, yeah, it's just between bros, like bros talking right now. By the way, guys, if you want to be a bro, smash the like button. If you're over here, if you're on Rumble, I know we got a couple hundred there on Rumble as well. So make your smash the like button on the.
I got to go. My son
platforms.
just got home, and I got to go
Steve,
say hello.
Thank you for joining me,
Love
guys.
you guys.
Make sure you check out Steve's book, Ideas and Answers in Law. Fantastic book. He's a fantastic grifter. He has a sexy website. Go check that out. SteveGosney.com. Putting that in the description as well.
All right.
So,
See you guys.
get his book there.
Oh my God, this giant forehead.
It is what it is. It is what it is. You're hitting the wall, Bronco. You're hitting the wall.
Not yet. I'm still there.
No, but seriously though, Bronco. I mean, for you, what are you looking forward to in this trial? Like, what do you want to see coming out of this? Are you just really waiting for the defense at this point? Are you kind of over the prosecution, or what?
No, I mean, by the time the state is done, I need to be utterly convinced of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, and then the defense is supposed to chop away at that. And
Sure.
I'm not seeing that now. I'm seeing alternative hypotheses, narratives of innocence, and the state hasn't closed those off. This guy murdered these people beyond any reasonable doubt. That's the state standard.
Right, and they're burdened.
I don't see it.
Yeah. No,
Maybe he did kill them. I don't know. I wasn't there. Maybe he did kill them. But the burden of the state is to prove him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I have no reasonable doubt that he killed them. And I have a lot of reasonable doubt.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I think that some of the witnesses the defense could potentially have are just going to add to the exculpatory nature of the of the evidence. I think, bringing up Buster, bringing up some lay witnesses, friends, being able to play other videos, in terms of Paul's
I think
relationship.
the defense is going to be very effective at that. I think they're going to bring up witnesses who are going to say, this guy loved his wife, loved his son, loved his family, whatever other bad things he might have done, he loved them to death. He would never have put their brains on the ceiling of the shed.
Well, and I know people talk about the affairs and whatever else. Well, first of all, bring the evidence of that, because none of that's entered into court, right? But even if someone was having an affair, even if they were able to prove that, bring in the mistress or whatever else, right? Even if they did that, which I don't think they will, that still doesn't, to me, prove that, hey, there's this animus to murder here. Even if that was something they brought in, which the prosecution hasn't brought in, by the way.
First, I'd have to see it, and then I'd need to see the context.
Right.
Because sometimes wealthy people in marriages, sometimes they just listen. Marriage works best for wealthy people. Wealthy people are the ones who stay married. Divorce is among poor people. Wealthy people don't tend to get married, divorced, and so they may get an point in their marriage where they're interested in other options. They don't get divorced. They just get boyfriends and girlfriends,
and they don't care. And they don't care. Yeah.
Because they're committed, they're emotionally committed to each other. They know they're not going to get divorced. It's not a threat to the relationship. It's just like going to the gym.
Right.
They don't care about that. It's not an emotionally loaded event. So that's not a reason to kill someone.
Right. And that's a big difference. It almost goes back to the old political marriages, right? You know, you stay together and you know what the other person is doing, right? But they, pay the taxes and they take care of the family and they're, keeping the front out there. And as long as it's not ruining their reputation in public, they're fine with it, right? In terms of the wealthier folks.
You've learned that sex, well, or at least you believe that sex is one of the less important aspects of your relationship. The children are, the property is, the politics is. And the other stuff, if you can come to an accommodation, it's just like a girls' night out.
Yeah. Yeah. People saying Southern wealth doesn't cheat. Okay, come on now. I mean, that's it's like because you live south of the Mason-Dixon line that suddenly you're reading too many romance novels. I'm sorry, guys. I'm very sorry. All right, guys, make sure you got, if also I was chilling Gosney so hard, I forgot about law of self-defense, but how dare I? Guys, make sure you check out Andrew. Either get his book, one of his courses, great. I will say, Andrew, I'm really enjoying teaching for you. Preparing for the class is one of the funnest things I've done. And I want to say, special thank you for giving me that opportunity because it's been
I am
really
so
fun
glad to hear it. Those are American Law Courses, AmericanLawCourses.com. And listen, the feedback we're getting from the students in your courses is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm actually grateful to you to making the time to teach the class.
Yeah, and if you guys are interested in that, check out AmericanLawCourses.com. That's where all the classes are, including my class, which is American Property, Freedom, Liberty, and Ownership. We're going to be talking about today present and future interests on my next class. But they asked me about civil asset forfeiture, and that wasn't even in my syllabus. So I just put that in there because they kept asking about it. And I'm like, fuck it, I'll talk about it. It's not really in a core property syllabus, but if people are interested in it, I'm willing to throw it in there. If people are asking questions and they really want to know, I'm going to give them answers.
You're limber, Andrew, and everybody loves
that's the
limber.
Oh, God damn it. All right. Well, that being said, guys, I'm going to wrap it here. I got a couple things to take care of before I hop on a plane. But Andrew, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, have a great trip in Thailand.
Wish the best to you and Emily, and I will be doing my class. Don't worry about it. But I will see everybody later. Take care.